Welcome to Tools, Talents, and Techniques. I'm your host, Dustin Sutton, and today we are honored to be joined by our distinguished guest, Mr. Hugh Williams. Hugh is he's the principal at KWILL Merchant Advisors, as well as various other enterprises, and he wears multiple hats, but each of them contribute to his expertise in strategic growth and entrepreneurship. His involvement with Sterling Bay as the Director of Strategic Growth and Entrepreneurship showcases his dedication in driving innovation and success in the real estate industry, among others. And so at KWILL, Hugh and his team, they adopt a very comprehensive approach, and they dive deep into all their clients' businesses to craft strategies that help foster growth and overcome challenges. So whether it's working with investors, occupiers, landlords, tenants, developers, Hugh's proficiency really shines through in his experience and all the things that he's done. This particular conversation, because we talk about his journey as a youth and getting into sports and the coaches and leaders that he's had around him and how they've helped develop his mindset and how he moves forward in his career and everything that he's doing, his day-to-day work and his leadership style. So here we go. Without any further ado, Mr. Hugh Williams. Hugh Williams, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Dustin Sutton. Appreciate it.
Before we jump into the deep end, can you just announce yourself and a little bit about what you do?
Sure. My name is Hugh Williams, co-founder of KWILL Merchant Advisors. We are a holding company with a strong interest in real estate, and all right, hold on, let me think about this. Now, I should know this.
We were just talking about this. You wear so many hats, do so many things.
Yeah. So many hats, so many things. No, but I'm the chairman and co-founder of KWILL Merchant Advisors. And the way to look at us is we are a holding company with interest in real estate and third-party consulting. And we have our own fund where we're direct investors in the companies. So we are a company. We're a business.
From everything that we talked about and what I know you're doing, you guys are a movement. That's what you are. So There's a couple of things that we're going to talk about later about what you're doing and some of the projects that are really case studies and of who you guys are and what you do. But before we get there, can you talk a little bit about your upbringing, like where you started, where the Hugh Williams story started?
Yeah, the Hugh Williams story started in Kingston, Jamaica, man. That's where I was born. And my parents grew up a mile from each other. So my parents are from a very small community, but a community with a little bit of that is renowned because it's the base of the Blue Mountain Coffee region. And Blue Mountain Coffee is one of the most, used to be the most expensive coffee in the world, but my grandfather worked at a coffee factory. So I used to go meet him after work and walk home with him and hang out with him and some of his friends after work. And then my parents immigrated to the States when I was in elementary school. I grew up in Davenport, Iowa, which is, not a lot of Jamaicans move from Jamaica to Iowa, but it was a great experience. I loved growing up in Davenport, and my mother and father, and I've got two brothers, I've got an incredible family, an incredibly close family, and very much shaped and molded me. And then spent my formative years in Davenport, finished high school in the Chicago metropolitan area, greater Chicagoland, and ended up earning a football scholarship to go to Northwestern. But by the way, I was a National Merit Scholar. I always like to put that out there because what happens when you're a football player and when you're a Black football player, everyone thinks that you got something that you didn't deserve, whether it's an education or anything. So ended up going to Northwestern, went to undergrad and grad school there. And from there, I fell in love with real estate through some relationships, some folks that I knew. And that's my life story in Less than 2 minutes.
All right. Well, let's expand on some of these items because you brought up that coming from Jamaica to Iowa when you were in elementary school. So how old were
Just
you at this?
just started elementary school, so first grade, uh, kindergarten just started. So
What was it that brought your parents over there? Was it a job opportunity or was
yeah,
there
so Jamaica used to give scholarships to come study in the States, and my father, who's my father has 5 U.S. patents with Caterpillar. He's a mechanical engineer, and so he ended up going to the Milwaukee School of Engineering. And he said that his plan was never to stay in the States, but I don't really believe that was the case. And he got a job with Caterpillar, and that's how the family ended up out there. And then my brother, we left him in Jamaica for a period of time until his papers got worked out, and then he came a year or so after my mother and I immigrated. And so then my youngest brother was born in the States. So, but that's how we ended up there. But we used to go back to Jamaica quite a bit when I was grown up, and Jamaica is a place that I hold very near and dear to my heart, especially because that's where all my people are from, right?
Yeah.
So that's how we ended up there.
What type of patents does your dad hold?
Oh man, joints for uh, something that holds two blades together on a tractor. I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't even tell you. But what I will tell you is if he worked at the large wheel loader plant, and when when you walk into the wheel loader plant, there's a wall of patents, and it's a really nice thing that they have out there. And so my dad's name is there a few times. And, it's stuff that people have patents on door lights, right? I mean,
Yeah.
but it's stuff that was essential for the tractors that he was working on, and so really, really quite proud of the work that he's done.
Yeah,
So
that's really cool. And so
yeah,
were you growing up at this, son of an engineer and doing all those things? Did you
yeah.
did you pick up on anything growing up on the way
No,
he
man,
looks at No, none of
no,
that?
no, 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 no. I think that my maternal grandfather, he was a guy. He was a tradesman, and so he was building houses for people. I mean, he carved furniture, made for. I mean, he was a real craftsman. And then my dad was an engineer, and I'm pretty sure they both looked at me and they're like, "How the hell is this guy even related to us?" Because I don't I don't think in a linear fashion, and I don't have the ability to make anything. So I would say that I'm very different from my father and my grandfather in that way. I think that I was always a person who, when I was young, and this is another story with my dad. Again, both my parents were really influential for me, but I had a paper route, right? And then my dad would help me on Sunday mornings because the paper was so big on Sundays. The Quad City Times I delivered. And then I put flyers in the paper route to mow people's lawns. And I had a little lawn mowing business, a little car wash business. I was that guy, because I grew up in a neighborhood. It was a good sized neighborhood. And you kind of got to know people in your neighborhood, and people would hire you to do stuff. And so I've always leaned just towards doing things. And the name of that company was called Neighborhood Enterprises. My dad helped me draw a logo and put it in the newspaper. So that's it. Yeah, I would say the engineering stuff. I look at those skill sets and I wish that I had them because I think it make me better overall. But what can you do?
Well, and you, based on what you're doing now, like you leaned into your strengths. If you had that entrepreneurial spirit as a child, I mean, you sure developed that well in what you're doing. Did you know in high school kind of what you wanted to do? Was there anything besides, those service industry items? Was
Sure. I
there
mean,
anything that jumped out that you were like, this is kind of where I see my career path going?
well, I said that I wanted to be a doctor from a very young age because I think again, when you go back and forth to a place like Jamaica, there's not a lot of healthcare, and
Mm.
the doctors are revered, and maybe I was into being revered, and so I took the MCATs in college, and but it wasn't really ever a driving There was just never anything that drove me. I mean, I was really much more in college. I played football. I was captain of the football team, co-captain, but I had a painting franchise, a college pro painters franchise, right? So I was always leaning into doing entrepreneurial type things. And after I finished school, and I went to graduate school at Northwestern as well, I went on exactly 2 job interviews, and they were one was for a big magazine, and the other was for a significant media company. And one of the interviews I went just because they flew a group of us out on their private plane, which I thought was kind of cool, and I hadn't been on a private jet before. So, but I came back and I called my mom and I said, "Ma, I can't, I can't go get this job, or I can't do this." And she said, "Oh yeah, why?" And I said, "Well, look, I sit in this room and 4 people come in and interview me, and then there are 14,000 people who work at this who work at this company, and I don't even know how you stand out." And not that standing out is a thing, but it just looked like workaday world. And
Mm,
I have a healthy respect for workaday world and people who work, but just from a personality standpoint, it was never gonna work for me.
yeah.
So I became a real estate broker, a commercial real estate broker.
And so when you were in college, you mentioned you were the captain of your team.
Yeah.
What year did you? Well, first of all, in high school, I guess were you also the captain of the team in high school? Your high
Well,
school football team?
so here's how it went for me. I mean, I was always a pretty good athlete, and I don't even think we put it this way. I'm sure I was a captain of the team in high school, but I just don't remember. I think our coaches, we had maybe game captains or, I don't, uh, but it was always sort of the same guys over and over again. But as a freshman in high school, I played varsity soccer. And then I decided to play football because I played backyard football and I thought it would just be fun to play football. And we moved to a new school, and I looked around this school and I felt like I could take advantage of the guys walking around the hallway. They weren't exactly, they believe it or not, Davenport, Iowa, where I was from, just an incredible athletic base. And, and, uh, and I just would have probably never played football there just because Roger Craig, a bunch of guys from Davenport went on to play in college, big programs in the NFL. And so then I just decided to play football. And then I was a wrestler. I was an all-state wrestler. I came in third in state, and I was probably a better wrestler than a football player. I was just a guy who competed, but
Mm,
sort of a natural competitor, right? I mean, I didn't spend a lot of time. Today these kids are doing things year round and training and all that stuff. I mean, I played in season and that was it. My parents came to the
mhm.
games. My mom didn't come to wrestling matches though because she didn't like it. And then, so that's how it went. And so I was always one of the people, one of the guys who was good,
Mm.
and then I had an expectation of being good, and or at least good enough to play. And so that's how I approached it. And I don't remember what the question was that you asked me, but
Well, I think what I'm really getting at is that leadership quality
right.
and what you were doing as a captain of your football team in college. How would you describe your leadership style?
I I think my
Maybe not
leadership,
even just football, but just in general, like you leading your company, you
sure,
leading your division. Like, how would you describe that, and how has that arced over time?
yeah, my leadership style is very flexible. I'm my high school coach. I'll tell you. I'll give you two, I guess, vignettes of the people who've been influential in my life from a coaching standpoint. So my high school coach, BJ Luke, he's one of my friends today, and he used to say to me one day. He called me into his office. This is a story I tell all the time. He called me into his office and he said, "Hey Hugh, you had a pretty good year last year." And I said, "Yeah, I did, coach." And he said, "You're a pretty good player." And I said, "Yeah, I am." He's just pumping me up, right?
Hmm.
And then he said, "You have a minute? You want to watch some film?" So I said, "Sure." So we went and sat down, and my coach made a 10-minute low light film of, of, of every missed block that I had, because at the time I was a running back, when I fumbled the ball, missed assignments, and it was just horrifying. I actually cried. I mean, I was crying during this meeting, and I left thinking, well, I just got to get better, right?
Mm.
And in order for our team to do what we, in order for our team to perform and make it to the playoffs and win some games, which my high school had never done before, then I had to be a better player and a better steward. And then, when I got to college, I had a coach who was a terrible coach, by the way, but he said something that I always use to this day. And one of them is, you're never as good as you think you are, and you're never as bad as you think you are. And that always stuck with me, because you got to have a mindset of making plays and forgetting about what happened. And my defensive coordinator and Northwestern, Gary Barnett, and Ron Vanderlyn, and my defensive coordinator and head coach, respectively, they both also said things to me that resonated with what I will talk to you about eventually with my leadership style. So Coach Barnett was a person that was very focused on winning. Right? His whole approach to life and to what he wanted to accomplish at Northwestern was about winning, game planning to win, working out to win. There was never any discussion about not winning, right? And he put these shirts, we all had these shirts that said expect victory. And then he came and was at a basketball game, and he said, hey, I'm going to take the purple to Pasadena. I mean, come on, taking Northwestern to win the Big Ten, right? These are what, even guys on the team were like, come on, yeah, right? And then I think setting a vision and an expectation that you are going to win, creating a core standard of behavior. We at KWILL Merchant Advisors, we have a thing called the 4 C's of KWILL. I think we might add a fifth to it, but the 4 C's are care. We really care about what we do, and we care about our fellow teammates. Connection. We are connected, right? We're all connected with everyone is a brand contact for someone else, and we're always thinking of the ways to leverage our connectivity on behalf of our clients. Creativity. We've got to bring creativity to the forefront whenever we do something, because lots of times you're dealing with complex issues. And then confidence, earned confidence, right? The 4C, meaning that we are confident in what we do because we've proven that we can do it, and then we're confident that we can provide some leadership to you. So I think that what Gary did for me was set an organizational tone, right? And set expectations. And then Coach Vanderlinden, he said, hey, man, great players make great plays, right? I mean, in its simplest form, like that's it. When there's an opportunity for you to make an impact, you have to do it, right? You can't miss that tackle on the goal line. It's not going to be third and bench 250 pounds or whatever it is. And those were guys that were good at putting people in positions to succeed. And I am very interested in leaning into what you excel at. I don't believe in passion. I don't believe I don't believe that the secret to success is passion. I think the secret to success is being good at something, understanding what you're good at, and leveraging that strength. I just think people spend a lot of time working on their weaknesses, and I don't understand that. I think you can round yourself out on the bottom, but where you win is by stretching out the top, right? And if you got a guy that can only come off the edge, don't ask him to cover someone in space. Have him come off the edge, right? Yeah. Because if he's really good at coming off the edge, he's going to make some plays for you coming off the edge. But when you put him in space, that could be a problem. So why bother?
Yeah, and that's one of that resonates deeply with me, especially leveraging your strengths. And that's one of the things that I'm really I like to do with this platform and the tools, talents, and techniques, because the things that you've learned from your coaches and your experience and the people in your community, your parents, your
Mhm.
family, like all of these things that you're learning along the way are transferable. So like you're learning this in football, but now you running your organization and your company, then boom, the 4 C's, right? And
Right,
then
right,
now all those things that you can lead by that, and it makes sense because it's more of a holistic view. Like, and you understand, you live the values. It's not just like some words that they sound cool.
right.
Like, no,
Yeah.
no, this is why they work. This
This
is
is why,
why.
yeah, this is why they work. And I will tell you this, that um, the 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 values. So I worked at any number of companies where once a year they would bring in some sales trainer, right? And that trainer would change from year to year. They'd put you through 2 days of sales training, and then then forget about it. And then so it wasn't there was nothing that was ingrained culturally in any organization, right? And I remember I'd work at places and they'd say, "Oh, we're a family." I'm like, "We're not a family, right?" Because even my football players, like, we're not family. We're people with a common goal, right?
Mm.
And then these companies would say, "Well, we're a team," and I would say, "No." The one thing I can say from playing sports and competing at a high level, and I wrestled in college my freshman year, is that the meaning of team is very different in a competitive world than it is in a the meaning of team is very different in a competitive world than it is in the business world. Because let me tell you, when you're on a team, uh, everybody's giving it to you, right? So your coach is filming you in practice, and right after practice, you are sitting in the room with 9 of your closest friends who all want to take your position, and your coach says, "Why did you take that step, Hugh? What were you looking at? Why did you take that step? Why did you take that step? How deep was your drop? Your drop was supposed to be 10 yards. You took a 7 yard drop." You know what that does to the DB, right? I mean, and in the real world, in the business world, uh, no one gets feedback, and no one understands that you you all have to be pulling in the same direction, because so many people are used to just being on their little island and not recognizing that you're part of an ecosystem. We use the word ecosystem a lot at KWILL Merchant Advisors because we're all interconnected, and my success is dependent upon everyone's. Is dependent on the person's success who sits next to me. It's dependent upon um, my assistant's success. I mean, I lean on her. I mean, so everyone's success is dependent on everyone else. And that's why we've got an organizational development component. The fellow that we hired to help us come up with the 4 C's, we meet regularly with the team. And as we're building this company and this organization, we're very focused on that. And, my leadership style, I'm sure it could be improved because I like to give people enough rope and give them direction and let them do it. And then I sort of get mad, which is not the, which is not, which is not the way. But yeah, I think that you gotta let people grow. You gotta give them, opportunity for growth. But I also try to be willing to listen and give advice. And, I think you just got to be open to hearing people. And that's, one of my heroes in life, Dustin. He gave me one day. We're sitting around at his house, and by the way, he is incredible. It was an S&P CEO of an S&P 500 company that he effectively built, and Morningstar CEO of the year. And we're sitting at his house, and he said, "Hey, Hugh, you want to know what my philosophy in life is?" And he got up and he wrote on his wall, because he was tearing down this house anyway, and he wrote.
First of all, yeah, that's amazing to hear you say that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. I mean, yeah, no, it's a long story, but we would hang out at this house pre-demo, and uh, wrote on the wall on the x-axis, he wrote positive, or positive and optimistic, and then no, optimistic, pessimistic, and positive and negative. And he said, I only like to spend my time with people in this quadrant who are positive and optimistic. All right.
Mhm.
Everybody else, I have no interest in. You got to be
No.
positive and optimistic. And then from a leadership standpoint, his style was, hey, we meet at the beginning of the year, we give goals to his team, and then we meet at the end of the year. And if you didn't meet those goals, you've got, there's a price to pay for that, right?
Wow.
And yeah, and so my heroes, I'm fortunate to say that my heroes in life are all people that I know, right? And it's not Michael Jordan, although I love Michael Jordan, right? But and they're all people who have been doers and who've executed at a high level and gotten things done. And, I try to take little tidbits from everyone, but I love that, the positive and optimistic thing is something that I'll take with me forever.
Yeah, and
So that's
one of the things that jumped out to me when you said that, you said one of my heroes, and they said I'm sitting at his house, and I was like, wow, okay, that's good.
yeah,
That's good
yeah,
that
right.
that you're able to do that, and you find the people that you admire, that you respect, and that you can spend that time with them. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah,
So
no,
one of the things that you're talking about and spending that time, and also what you said about giving people enough bandwidth
right.
to learn and make the mistakes. And I think a big part of that is understand. And yeah, this isn't a question here,
Yeah,
but hopefully this resonates with you. Is understanding how much rope to give somebody, and
right.
understand like what is enough that they can make mistakes and they can learn from them.
hmm
They have enough room to really impress you with what they're doing.
hmm
But if they do make a mistake, there's a backflow there. Like it's not going to be a fatal mistake. They're not going to bring
Right.
down the whole ship by
Yeah, no,
doing this
no,
project. So
no.
being aware of that, yeah,
Right. Yeah, no, you within giving people rope, not everyone deserves rope, and not everyone deserves the same amount of rope, right? And my high school coach used to say, guys, I play favorites. I play favorites. I have favorite players. And you know who my favorite players are? My favorite players are the guys who are running hard every play, or the guy who doesn't miss practice, or the guy who's leading the sprint, or the guy who's in the weight room every day, right? Or the guy who comes in and watches film in the morning. I play favorites, right? And that's the world is. The world, resources flow to those who deserve them and those who can make something happen with them. So yeah, I mean, not everyone has the same amount of rope, and people get pulled quicker for a variety of reasons. But you have to let people know that you believe in them, and that I was sitting around about a month ago, and people were talking about trusting people in work, and I adopted this phrase that someone called me about reviewing some document, and I said, hey man, I trust you. I think I think you're good at what you do, so we don't have to talk about it, because what'll happen is people get afraid to make mistakes, and then they want to run everything past you or past someone else, and that is no way for a company to grow. And
mm-hmm.
you just gotta empower people to make decisions and feel like it likely won't be fatal. Right.
I love that the qualifier you put on the last C, which is the confidence, and you said earned confidence.
Yeah.
Because people, and there's a screening process. I'm sure when you're doing your hiring and you're bringing people on the
Mm.
team, you're giving them the tools to have success. But then they earn those steps, they earn that rope, they earn that confidence. So
Right.
that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So.
I want to make sure that we start talking about some of the projects that KWILL has been engaged in, and I know there
Mhm.
was a deal in Houston that we touched upon. Could you tell me about that deal? And
Sure. Sure. So the Quill Merchant Advisors we touched on this at the beginning, but we've got a Quill Consulting Partners which is led by two women who come from McKinsey and West Monroe Partners, respectively. And then we've got KWILL Capital Partners, which is led by a guy who comes from the first publicly traded Black business in America, that lineage, and runs that business. And then we've got KWILL RE, which is a kind of a separate component, but also can be seen as part of the KWILL Capital advisory business. And we are creating a system where we want to work together on every opportunity that comes to our plate, right? So our real estate folks are the front door to many opportunities on the consulting side and even on the capital side. But in Houston, we just completed a 177,000 square foot lease transaction on the behalf of Umoja Supply Chain Solutions. Now, Umoja Supply Chain Solutions is a company that I co-founded with a former client of mine. Now we are business partners, Todd Avery, who used to be the CEO of McLean Global. And so this was an example of our brokerage team, led by a fellow named Matt Knafel, who's been my partner for many years, went down to Houston, led this tour. We ended up negotiating a lease that was about 20% below market. We just timed it in an incredibly perfect timing from a timing standpoint. And that business, Umoja's business, is expanding. We're in California and Ohio and Texas, but that has allowed us to increase our number of pallet positions significantly. And Umoja, while Umoja is the client of that business, we also have a third-party logistics business that operates out of that warehouse. So our third-party logistics business, which is led by Mauricio Gallego, he is building up that our client base there while we speak. So with that one transaction, our brokerage division was compensated, right? Umoja Supply Chain Solutions, they were also compensated because of a fee sharing agreement, but also because Umoja's footprint expanded. And then our third-party logistics business, which supports Umoja, but is also its own separate entity, is now increased its footprint as well. And so when I was coming up in the real estate business, it's a numbers game. You got to have a lot of clients doing a lot of deals all the time. But you're only doing a real estate deal, right? And you're only focused on a real estate transaction. And I don't care what anybody says. All these big white shoe firms who talk about doing all these things. I used to be at one of these firms. From a real estate perspective, when you go in to talk to some of these companies, what they see you as a real estate jockey. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how white your shoes are or how blue your tie is, and it's very hard to convince them to do anything else with you. And if you do convince them to do something else with you, then you and your brokers are at arms because people are fighting over fees internally. It's just a very tough thing. And we've just received so much positive mojo from how people receive us when we're talking about leveraging what we're doing. Say, hey, we don't bring the best we have. We bring the best there is, right? So if you need finance help, we have our CFO and our finance team is unbelievable, but we can bring in other groups. We can, we try to leverage as much as we can to do as many things as we can for a client. And then once we get in the door, if we get in the door on the consulting side, it's so easy to sell our real estate related services and it's so easy to sell our IT related services. And so I'm very interested to see where we end up. I mean, I think that we are building a unique and dangerous little animal.
Well, let's go back for a second, because I think I guess my bad as the interviewer, we skipped over because you started out as a broker, and then can you go through that genesis after you started the broker? Like, how did you expand from originally just being a broker?
Myself personally?
Yes.
So this is also another hero in my life who has founded one of the top I think one of the top five interior contracting firms in the U.S. He and I met golfing, and we were. He dropped out of school when he was 13. Also, immigrant story, and I was with him in his home country, and he said to me, "We're sitting around a table, and some of his friends were sitting around with us, and by the way, his friends were very successful, and also guys who dropped out at various times. I mean, it was just a really wild little thing. He's from Ireland, and he said, "Hey, guys, Hugh's going to be unhappy that I say this, but he's too smart and too good and has too many relationships to be wasting his time doing what he's doing, right?" And I thought about that, and it took me a couple of years to leave um, the pure brokerage world, but ever since I got into brokerage, I became an industrial broker because I wanted to buy buildings, right? And it seemed to me that the easiest way to buy a building was to learn the game from a brokerage standpoint. Also, another one of my heroes said, "Hugh, if you want to be a developer," because I thought I wanted to be a developer, "you should be a broker and learn how owners look at deals, learn how users look at opportunities, and build your skill set from there, and then figure out how to get in the lane of development." And so industrial was, four walls. We could do a wider variety of transactions. We could do build a suit for sale, build a suit for lease. We could do land transactions. We could do sale leasebacks. If you're doing straight commercial office, you don't have that variety of deals, right? You're just kind of looking at a few, a certain type of transaction. And so I got into business because I wanted to buy real estate. My two partners at the time on the brokerage side, they were in the business for 20, 25, 30 years respectively, but great brokers, but not great wealth builders, right? And it's just the folks that were heroic to me were the ones that always took a chance and stepped out and bought a piece of land or, tried to flip a building. And so I would always think about this, always think about it, always think about it. And then I just started to get little hints from people that, "Hugh, man, it's time. Like, if you think you can do it, you got to do it. Otherwise, you're not. It's just never going to happen." And so I left and I started a small brokerage business that gave me a measure of independence. That said, "Hey, I could leave and get away from these bigger shops and big shops." And then right after I did that, I bought a rebar fabrication business. My partners and I bought a rebar fabrication business because I said, rebar is everywhere. It's in every road, every bridge, almost every building. Because people were looking at me like I had three eyes. Like, why would you do that, right? And
but you saw the pattern. You saw where it was going.
I said, "Hey, man, I know developers, I know contractors, and if every 20 months in America, you will see that a bridge collapses." Every road in America was built during the New Deal. Thank you, FDR, right? But if you've got 90-year-old bridges and roads, and the population has gone from whatever it was, 180 million to 360 million people, you're going to need infrastructure, right? And rebar, I thought, was a way that we could leverage the need and desire for infrastructure. Now, it's been a learning experience. I mean, hasn't been a home run, and we kind of bought that business. I'm going to say blindly, but what I will say is this: if I had complete and total transparency, I probably wouldn't have bought that business. And then if I didn't buy that business, it wouldn't have given me the true sense of autonomy that I have now, that would have emboldened me and enabled me to do other things, right?
Yeah.
And so we, the rebar business, bought that business, and then my partners and I represented a company around the country, and the CEO of this company was one of my first cold calls ever in the business, and it turned out we played high school football against each other. He was a powerhouse. He played at a powerhouse program, and he and I developed a strong relationship on the client provider side, very demanding client. And one day he called me up and he said, "Hey, Hugh, do you think we could raise money together and start our own platform, because I obviously had the knowledge from a real estate perspective of what they were doing. And so the short strokes is that's what led me into supply chain, because as I was a broker, I always said, third party logistics, that business is a fake business, right? There were companies with very little credit, but it was a burgeoning business. It was, and you read the paper every day and you see that America is, we're a consumer-based society. It's about getting the goods, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt like there was something in that logistics space that made sense, and I wanted to be on the ownership side of logistics. And then when Todd, my partner, said, "Can we do it?" We took a look at some numbers and we said, "Hell yeah!" And we put a team together, and that's another thing that sports has allowed me to do: understand the importance of teams. So we put a team together and raised money and started this thing de novo, started our own supply chain and distribution business. And then, of course, that means we handle the real estate. And, as our footprint grows, what I want to do is I want to become a large asset-based 3PL where we control a lot of that real estate, where we create the value by being the tenants in that space, sell that portfolio if we want to, refinance it, monetize it. So that's how that came about. And then the merchant advisory component was I'd incorporated a consulting firm. It was a minority certified, DBE certified status, and it was on the shelf for a little while. Well, as we started talking to our clients, people would ask us for. So one of our clients said, "Hey, could you help us automate our warehouse?" And the reason why they asked is because they knew that we had experience setting up a bunch of warehouses. So we said, "Of course we can." And we started to take people off our bench and put them on third-party jobs. And, our internal folks were delighted because there was opportunity to earn extra income, because I'm a big fan of compensating people. And then externally, the clients were happy because, when in the consulting world, you get a lot of folks who are not practitioners, right? They're observers. And by the way, very smart observations and very, very intuitive, but that's a lot different than a person who's actually, built out warehouse management software, or implemented a new ERP, actually implement, or had to go through that data collection process, or had to refinance some assets, right? That's a lot different than the smart person saying, "You should do this and you should do that." So there's been a strong and positive receptivity to what we've done. And now it's going to turn into something where I'm going to feed the entrepreneurial fire that I have, because, we're getting so many looks at so many different opportunities for businesses to invest in. We own a rebar business. We own part of a meat distribution business that started out as a client. We've got a small piece of this company. We've got a canning company, and where we make pasta, sauce, things like that for third parties. We've got a studio component in what we do. Hired a very talented guy on the consulting side, and I've taken the approach that within reason, there's nothing that we cannot find the right resource to do. And as we build out our business units, we're gonna be pretty defined in relatively short order, but I just think that we're going to be really dangerous. We're owners, investors, advisors.
Well, you're on your way. And one of the things that I've realized, like, you are so vertically integrated, but you're really horizontally integrated as well. I mean, you're doing a lot of different things. And I think from your experience, especially being on the real estate side and then the advisory side, like, you have access to see how people do it and what works, what doesn't work, who does it well, who do you want to bring on your team, who you don't, you have access to a lot of data.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's access to data, inputs, people. You look at these companies and look at I just read that KKR wanted to have, I don't know, 750 billion of assets under management. It's like some ungodly number, right? And then you look at, I mean, their firm is massive. I mean, what information don't they have, right? And
Mhm.
Blackstone, what information does Blackstone probably knows as much about us as the government does, right? Because of the various companies that they own. So I'm fascinated by that, and I think that if you can bring more services to bear for, or as you build an organization like that, and more services that generate fees, it's like that saying, the Native Americans, when they killed a buffalo, they used every part of the buffalo, right? So that's my goal. I want us to do as much as we can with every single client, and not just you know
Well,
kill it
I,
for
I
its
think
fur.
I think one of the things that you mentioned before when you talked about feedback, when you said, this is how the feedback you get on the team, and then in the real
Right,
world, certain things you don't get that feedback. And from what it sounds like, your mindset and your approach is like all the information that you're learning, you're bringing it back and you're saying, hey, let's look at this opportunity. Let's look at this. And how do we
right.
do this? And how do we do it better? And how we succeed? So that's very I mean, that's very smart to be able to do that and be able to have a team that you're working with that you can. And this dovetails with another thing that you said about being a doer, not just an observer. I heard
Right.
Obama say in an interview something recently where he's like, "There's a lot of people that can tell you what's wrong. There's a
Yeah.
lot of people that can tell you like what they see and why something happened." He's like,
Right.
"But there's not that many people that can actually do something like
Right.
actually fix.
Yeah.
Okay, good. You pointed out, let it fix it."
Yeah.
So it's
Well,
cool to see that you're an implementer. You're a doer. I love it.
I'd love to see that, man, because yeah, I agree 100%. It is, and I think that was part of my problem. I would tell people what I'm interested in doing, and they would just piss all over it, or tell me what they thought was wrong or what, And it got to a point where maybe I became a little defensive, and I just said, you know what? I'm gonna do what I think makes sense to do. Like, you go pound sand and you do what you do, but I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and we'll just see how it goes. And um, I think President Obama was right. That lots of people tell you what's wrong, man, and I don't participate in idle. I've got a couple friends who love to talk about politics, and I go, guys, are any of you running for office? Are any of you going door to door? Are any of you doing anything besides just running your yap? And I just don't want to hear it unless
Yeah.
you're doing something. So, like, that's the world that I come from, man. You know, that's it.
So for you and like how you're looking at things and you taking these chances, and I think
Mm,
this is the same thing about you giving other people rope, and for you to say, I'm going to give this a try, like I'm going to give
mhm.
this a shot. Can you talk about your thought process when you are analyzing a whatever it is, whether it's a new lease, whether it's investing in a company, hybrid, like what is your decision making process? How do you analyze data before you leap?
Yeah, well, first, I have some people who really can grind out some outputs from inputs, from a uh,
Like an
from a
analytical.
modeling
Yeah.
yeah, from a
Hmm.
modeling perspective. And I do some consulting with Sterling Bay, which is one of the largest, certainly the highest profile developer in Chicago, and doing a lot of things around the country. And the CEO of Sterling Bay is a guy I have a tremendous amount of respect for, because he is excited about every deal. So I get excited about, my first instinct is to be excited about an opportunity, right? And um, and then it might only take me 2 minutes to go, well, that's a bad idea. But I'm sort of excited about every new opportunity that's brought to me. And I feel like I owe that a minute or two of mind space to consider. And then from there are a couple people that I talk to quite a bit, whose opinions I really trust, and we might mull it over. But I look at it like, we have this theory where we call it's the edge theory, and it's, do we have an edge? Can we leverage our talent internally in a way that benefits this opportunity? If we buy this packaging company, could Umoja on the distribution side, would Umoja benefit from it, right? And so if the answer is yes, that there's an edge to doing what um, to evaluating this opportunity, then we look at it that much harder, right? So if someone brought me I tell you about a deal that we did not do. It was kind of security based, and there's you know, if I controlled a bunch of buildings and needed a bunch of security, boom, 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 then maybe I would do a deal like that, right? But because at the moment that we didn't, it didn't make sense. So it's definitely, can we leverage something internally? Can we leverage our people? Will our companies benefit from it? That's really the first step in evaluating something. But I'm just excited to get an idea brought to me, because I just think that everything starts with an idea, and I love ideas, and I love. Yeah, so we have this cool studios fellow, and he's a creative type, and I just love having creative people around me because they think in such a different way, and they bring all sorts of ideas to the front. And it's no secret that mathematicians and artists, they're both right-brained people, right? They're spatially gifted, and you need these people to see things that other people don't see. And so I just think it's a long way of saying that I get excited. I get excited about every idea. We've got some strong analysts who can help vet the financial viability of an idea. I try not to make bets on our gut, but bets on whether or not we have an edge. Can I leverage the person in the office next door in a way that's going to be beneficial to this opportunity? And if the answer is yes, then we keep it going.
So I like that edge theory. So that's a good one. That's a good one. I like that because it's so tangible. Like you think about it in a way, and it's succinct. I like that. It's something I probably think of, but it's
no, but so I told this to little people. I say, hey, leverage is a very important word, and two words in America that you really have to understand. No is an empowering word, and leverage, that's that's another word, right? So if you tell people no, that means you have agency. It's simple. You don't want to play outside, just say no, right? And you don't want to, it gives you agency over your world. And then leverage is, if you play sports, it's the most important thing. When you play football, if you're on defense, you got to get to the edge. You got to maintain the edge. You got to be in position. You got to hold the edge. And if you're a running back, and if you're a back, if you're a receiver, your whole goal is to get to the edge, right? If you get to the edge, defense has got a problem because you're running down the sideline at that point, right? And so it's all about getting the edge. And we were calling our first fund the Edge Fund, because we are focused on getting the edge, maintaining the edge, and exploiting the edge. That's what we want to do.
You mentioned about creativity and why that's important. It's actually, included in your core values. I think it was number 3, right? In the 4 C's. So that being creative or being around creative people and having that, and you alluded to this when you said like you get excited about ideas because you see the potential.
Right.
Also, it's good to have people that are analytical around you and have that yourself sometime to kind of, this is the things that we need to look at. But one thing that I've realized, especially in the recent years, like creativity can often come from, from desperation. Sometimes you just got to be creative.
Right.
But I feel like the best creativity comes from a place of less anxiety. Like you have enough freedom, you have enough security where you have some space to be creative and to be free to think outside the box. I just think that's so important, and that's something that if you can give more people that space and that freedom to make those choices and make those decisions, and then you don't have to tell them exactly what to do. Like, hey, here, this is what needs to be done. Agency, like you said, like go for it. See what you can come up with.
Yeah, go for it.
Give people the opportunity to surprise you.
Right. Exactly. That's it. I like that. Give people the opportunity to surprise you. I'm gonna steal that.
You got it. All yours.
All right. Yeah.
So before we take off, I want to make sure I give you the opportunity. Is there any final words of wisdom, something that you've learned through your journey, something you're working on? The floor is yours. Share what you will.
Yeah, I think very simple quote from my parents in terms of words of wisdom. And I don't believe you can live your life by any man's words, by the way, right? So I try to think of things very simply, but I know my mom and dad used to always say this to me. They say, hey, if you push on the door and it doesn't open, pull on it, right? It's like very simple. And it's just keep trying. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be the greatest thing in the world. Just, keep it moving. And then, my dad used to say that to me a lot. And then my mom, I won't bore you with the details now, but she gave me a speech once about being a second choice, and you just can't stand, don't stand for that. And just know that whatever decision that you make, you're the ultimate arbiter of your next move, right? And just don't let people put you in a box. And that's it. And don't let people put you in a box. And if the door doesn't push when you open, pull on it, right? Real simple. That's it.
I love it.
Yeah. So I appreciate it, man.
Well, no, I appreciate you spending this time and sharing your story. You're doing some amazing things, and congrats on your success. And here we go.
Hey, man, good luck to you, by the way. I'm really, really delighted to see what you're doing with the BCREN and your efforts there. I mean, getting something going is a hard thing to do, man. So I really appreciate and support your efforts. So thank you for having me on the show.
Well, thank you. And, one of the things that, the old expression, if you shoot for the moon, you end up among the stars. Like that's one of the things that, I think of sometimes, like, you got to take a shot. You got to shoot your shot. You got to try and you'll learn. But one of the big things that I've learned is that when you try, it attracts other people that are like, hey, I like that you try. I like that you take your shot. And these are and then going back to what you said about leaning into your strengths, then you can find your strengths by trying. But if you don't do anything, if you don't try, you're not going to figure out what you're good at or what you're not, or, anything other than that. Yeah.
Shoot or shoot. So.
Shoot or shoot. That's right. You got to shoot to score.
That's right.
All right, Hugh. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of Tools, Talents, and Techniques. We hope that you enjoyed the conversation. And if you did find value in the episode, please consider subscribing to the podcast on your favorite platform, leaving a review, and sharing with your network. We have an amazing lineup in the coming weeks and months with some very impressive leaders and some of the heaviest hitters in business who are making a positive impact in the world. So stay tuned for more exciting episodes and special features coming up. We appreciate your ongoing support and look forward to welcoming you back next time on Tools, Talents, and Techniques.